Welcome everyone to Take30, presented by Ironside. We've also got Precisely here to talk about data and the power of data for franchises. Um, so I will jump right in with introductions. I am Brian Platt. I'm a practice director of our data science group here at Ironside. I've also got Brian Bradke here from Precisely, and specifically the Place IQ, which has location data at Precisely. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about what that location data can do for you and how we can integrate it into your business operations. So we're going to go through Ironside data solutions that we can build out for clients, talk about Precisely data sets, and the in particular the Place IQ data sets within Precisely that include observed visitation data, and how it all comes together and can help your business practice. At Ironside, we have three products. We have a product suite that has three main offerings. Ascent AI, which is our machine learning and data science practice, and that's the group I lead. We also have Ascent Data, which builds that data analytics and those dashboards, as well as Ascent IQ, which can help with migrations of various BI activities. So a broad range and a full spectrum of data solutions can be built out for clients. The basic philosophy, this is a slide with a lot of material on it, but the basic philosophy is we want to make sure that you get the data where it needs to be and in front of the people that need to see it. That if the raw data, getting that rapid insight generation to the right people quickly, getting what we call data as a service, making sure we can do those transformations that are needed to make sure the data gets where it needs to be and is stored where it needs to be. And then the automated value delivery is, to deliver that data in ways that are useful for your people. The various sort of data structures that are involved in a data solution are what's called a data lake. That's a modern data solution that is essentially a way to capture all of the raw data that's coming in to your organization. There's all kinds of different data sources these days about users, about customers, about operations, and getting those all in one place just so that you can capture it all in real time is what the data lake is meant to do. There are sandboxes which are meant for the research elements of your organization, so that folks that are doing investigations into data have places that they can look at data quickly and do the kind of research that they need to do to gain insights. Data zones are a way of organizing your data so that things are usually typically in a raw form or a transformed form, as an example of data zones in order to keep things organized. And then finally, there's data warehouse, which is the structured data repository that allows standard business operations, queries, data science work can build off of the data warehouse. So there's a lot of different pieces to this, of course, and that's where Ironside can help out with your data build out. And obviously anything that's franchise operation, you're going to have a lot of data coming in. So you can see as an example here, you're going to have data from your franchisees, or the franchises themselves will have data coming in. There'll be operational data. There will be various metrics around business units that need to be calculated. There'll be information about sites if you're looking at site selection and how that would work. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is Precisely data and the Place IQ data in particular that can also benefit your operational analyses and look at competition and other use cases. And we'll go through that in detail as we move on here. But again, this would be consumed, the data would be consumed into a data lake. We typically focus on AWS, so we have the AWS services listed here, including like S3 and Lake Formation to build out that data lake. Then the data go through ETL transformations, and that can take a variety of services to do that. enable those sandboxes for the research, and then move on, as the data, as you know what metrics you want and what KPI are important for your organization, build out the ETLs that transforms it and moves it into a warehouse so that you have BI displays like QuickSight to enable the visualization of data, enable the quick comprehension of data that have come in. So working with Precisely, this is a data partner of ours. They have a really robust set of data of all types, and that includes various location information such as boundaries. It includes address validation, address information. It includes demographics, so you can know what kind of customers you have. It has points of interest, which can be valuable for site selection and other applications, and street level information so that you can have routing and geocoding. And relatively recently, they acquired Place IQ, and Place IQ data specifically is mobile location data. So you can actually look at individual visitors to your locations and get aggregate calculations around who has visited and where they came from. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian Dradke now to talk a little bit more about those data and how they can be valuable.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Brian. I'm also Brian Bradke with Place IQ Precisely. A little bit about who Place IQ is. I mean, we've been in the data analytics and movement data business, specifically for mobile devices, for about 12 years. And we were acquired by Precisely in February. Obviously, Precisely has got amazing data assets and technology to help people manage their data and get insights out of it. And they added us basically to fill a gap that they had, which was true observed movement data from consumers. And so we added that to the Precisely family of data, and are now integrating that into all sorts of products. But what I'll talk to a little bit here today is just kind of what we do, how we do it, and more importantly, some of the use cases that might be interesting for the franchise space. So we are, at our core, we're in the business of turning raw GPS signals from smartphones, and we see billions of signals a month from about 150 million unique devices a month. We turn that raw signal into usable insights for marketers, for real estate management companies, for consultancies, for analytics firms, and for brands who want to better understand their consumers and what they do in real life. Today I'll give you a quick view of that, just super high level. We won't talk about the technology per se, but again, more about the use cases and how you would use this data, because it is incredibly powerful. And as Brian Platt mentioned, this is true observed behavior. This is not modeled. This is not derived. This is not assumed data. We're seeing actual GPS signals from consumers' smartphones, and now from connected autos, and then making all sorts of really cool and interesting solutions out of that. So how do we do that? There are two kind of sides to the coin to our solution set. One is the movement data itself, and we collect, again, from about 150 million smartphones per month, unique smartphones per month, from thousands of apps that consumers have opted in to share their data with. And those apps are constantly pinging GPS signals that we then collect from a number of sources. We clean it, we analyze it, we validate that those signals are accurate, that we're not getting bogus data from providers that are trying to pass bad data. We've got 12 years of experience doing that, so we get it down to the very clean core data. And that really boils down to a GPS. It's a latitude, longitude, and a timestamp at the end of the day, with a little bit of device data. We now also get auto telematics data, so connected automobiles that ping a military grade accurate GPS signal on where they park and how long they stay. So we combine that data along with some credit and debit data that we also get, clean it, and then combine it with the other half of the equation, which is the map, right? A raw GPS signal is not worth much unless it's contextualized. So a GPS signal on a blank map is worthless. So we build the map to basically be able to attribute that GPS signal and that visit to a place. And we build our own proprietary base map to do that. So rather than using, off the shelf mapping software, we actually build our own maps. We have human cartographers, and we use satellite imagery to hand draw the boundaries, the footprint of individual stores and restaurants and franchisee chains of all types. And by drawing that very accurately, we can then attribute that GPS signal very accurately, which is very important when you're using this for analytics work, using our data for analytics work. So we combine those two assets together, the movement data and the maps, process it through all sorts of complex, data science processing to create these visits. Visits are created and built. It's not just a raw GPS signal, it's actually got intelligence behind it. And then we spit out a number of different solutions in different forms based on the use case. One of the key use cases is advertising, which I'll touch on very briefly. Advertising, finding the right cohort of consumers to advertise to, people that have visited your franchise, people that have visited another franchise that you want to convert over to you, people that have lapsed and haven't been in for a while, etc. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the licensing side, which is basically a feed of daily, very granular visitation data for every device to every place we measure. That's a huge daily data feed that people use for longitudinal analysis and trending and all sorts of interesting use cases that we'll talk about. But in the middle, kind of the sweet spot that we'll talk about in more detail today is the intelligence suite. So Brian, if you could go to the next slide. So again, advertising is a pretty simplified use case. You find people that come to your franchise or your competitor or haven't been in a while or come in a lot, so that you can give them different treatments in your ads. You can also use visitation data to measure whether a campaign was effective. Someone was exposed to an ad, did they come in and actually visit your store? So that's one set of very effective use cases. We talked about the licensing, the intelligence. Again, the sweet spot that we're talking about here is basically a series of dashboards and aggregated data sets that make it a lot easier to consume the data. The one in particular that we'll talk about is place intelligence metrics, which is based on the raw data, but basically pre-calculates and rolls it up, aggregates it in a way that gets folks like you the insights that you're looking for without needing, a huge data science team or a massive server farm to store the data. We can go to the next slide, Brian. One of the things that is really interesting and exciting about our being a part of Precisely and the partnership with Ironside is that although Place IQ can feed out raw data or give you a kind of a simplified dashboard, which we'll show you, now that we have this very strong relationship with Ironside, there is the ability and the option to do much more complex and customized dashboards and analytics work using our raw data. All right, so what we're going to talk about here is kind of what we can provide off the shelf, but just keep in mind that this raw data, which is extremely robust and extremely dense, is available now through Precisely and Ironside to do all sorts of deep analytics work and custom projects. So what we're talking about is kind of the simplified version. So place intelligence metrics. Again, this is pre-aggregated. What we found was most of the customers that licensed our data, the raw kind of granular, terabytes of data every day, ultimately wanted to solve for probably a dozen pretty simple use cases, right? Or insights that they were trying to get. They wanted to know how many people visited their sites by site or by chain on an hourly basis, daily, weekly, monthly, right? They just wanted to know what those trends looked like. They wanted to know how long a consumer spent in their store versus their competitors. How far they traveled from where they lived and where they worked. Basic demographic attributes of those visitors, so they can do some customer profiling, and things like where else did that consumer go on the same day? They visited my hamburger stand, but where else did they go on that trip, same day or same week? So those are the things that we aggregated up and pre-calculated in this data set, again, to make it very easy to use, and to kind of minimize the amount of data science resource that was required to enable this and make decisions out of it. So that's what this data set basically provides you. This is normalized. It is, there's a history of data behind it that you can look at. So you can do trend analysis and longitudinal analysis and comparisons against your competitors, for example. Is the visitation to my chain of stores comparable, higher or lower than my competitors by site, by geography, by region? You get the picture. But again, being able to see real people moving around in space, on Earth in their real lives, is extremely powerful because it is not, it's known data. It's as close to deterministic as you can get, and is proven and actually is highly correlated to the truth sets that we compare it to. One of the things that I think differentiates our data versus others is that we have major partners, again, consultancies, other big data companies, Berkeley, and universities that are out there that have analyzed the data, and they find that our observed visits, right, phones that are we're getting GPS signals from, and our projections for certain things are very, very highly correlated, like 0.95 and above, to the truth sets that we get access to. So point of sale purchase data, people that count visitors to their stores manually in some cases to kind of as a truth set, we correlate very highly. So this is extremely accurate data for decision making. Go ahead, Brian. This is a quick view of kind of the visualization dashboard that we have. Again, it's the off-the-shelf kind of simplified view, but it gives you a feel for kind of how we represent the data. In this case, this is place intelligence metrics visualized. The top left basically is just a quick view of, in this case, it's a chain of stores. I'm not sure if this is McDonald's or Walmart, or it could be Five Guys or something like that. But it's the demographic profile of that chain of stores in a certain DMA versus a competitor that can be selected in the dashboard as well. And in this case, I think it's age. I'm having a hard time reading age, income, as well as some information about the devices that they're using. Is it Android? Is it Apple? So you can do very quick comparisons of this dining chain versus QSR in general, for example. And you can toggle through, look at individual chains against each other, look at individual sites against each other. The bottom right basically just shows the visitation trend for, in this case, it's a DMA of stores. This is Subway versus dining. I'm seeing here on the graph. And this is basically the comparison of visitation by day for that particular store versus the chain in general. So you get a feel for whether or not you're comparing well to your category. You can also do this by comparing to competitors. Now, the interesting thing here is that this is our super simplistic dashboard, and this is what we offer kind of along with the data. But again, Ironside specializes in creating custom dashboards that can go much deeper and provide more unique and kind of curated views of the data. This is like the super simplistic view, but it gives you a flavor for some of the things you can look at. Go ahead, Brian. Another example of one of the simplified views, again, using our observed movement data from GPS signals from phones and from autos. This is more of a trade area analysis, right? So in this case, we have, because we see these devices as they move around during the day, we also see them where they sit for 8 hours at night, and we see where they sit for 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours during the day. We know where that phone lives. We know where that phone works. So we can create very, very powerful trade area maps and analyses showing where your consumers for a particular store come from, from their work location or from their home location, kind of the density and heat map of where those people reside or work around your store, how far they travel, how long they stay. And again, you can toggle this back and forth between your own locations. In this case, it's a Hardee's, and you'll notice that the maps are completely different because in this case it's two separate maps. But typically, what you'll see is the heat map for the work dwell, the daytime kind of visitors versus the nighttime or people that come from their home. You're pulling from two completely separate geographies, so that impacts how you market. It impacts site selection in some cases, but it always gives some powerful insights as to kind of where your customers are coming from most frequently. And again, you can look at this for your own stores or versus competitors. Individually, you can look at full DMAs of stores, et cetera. Go ahead, Brian. And then my last kind of piece of information here is kind of about, how would a franchise use this data? And I've done a super high level view of the data in general, but we work with a lot of brands individually, a lot of QSR, obviously big box and retailers, et cetera. And then that's where this data really shines. Brick and mortar sites that are trying to drive people into the store, right, through their advertising, through their marketing, through all sorts of other efforts. Knowing how many people are actually coming in with a normalized, validated set of data that is there all the time is a super powerful thing. So you can use that obviously for advertising and marketing. Finding the right cohort of consumers, or using, you can use that cohort to activate ads against, and that our data is out there as audiences out in the general ecosystem on all the DSPs and marketing platforms. You can also use that as a measurement tool, as we mentioned. Was someone exposed to an ad, and then did they come into your store? Use the visit as the KPI to optimize your campaign. That is much more impactful than using clicks, right? Because your goal is to get people into your store to buy your product, not to click on something necessarily. So visits as a KPI has been proven to be very effective. You can also create different cohorts for competitive conversions, for lapsed customers, for people that live by or work by your particular store. So more of a convenience visit audience. Do all sorts of consumer profiling, right, based on the frequency of their visit, based on their demography, which we also provide, versus their actual behavioral data. Do they drive past your shop on a daily basis? Maybe they don't come in, but they should, because they drive past you every day. How far do they travel from where, et cetera, et cetera. It's very powerful as well for site selection and trade area analysis, as we mentioned. Because you have access to not only your own stores, but potentially hundreds of chains that are also in your category, or they're competitors of yours. You can do all sorts of competitive analysis. What do the visitors to your stores look like versus the visitors to your competitor? How do you increase the frequency of their visits to you versus them? Trending analysis and longitudinal analysis over time. How does the weather and marketing programs and competitive pressures impact visits to your particular set of stores? We also have people that use it for supply chain analytics, where they correlate, and institutional investing is another example. They correlate the visit trend and visit quantity to the amount of a product that is being consumed, and then they can predict what the next order is going to be for rum or for hamburgers or whatever, because they can make that correlation and predict what the supply depletion rate has been. And institutional investing, so using our data to predict what the next quarterly report's going to be based on the number of visitors and the average basket size. You can do some very cool things there as well. So I blew through a lot of information very quickly, but I think you can see that observing consumer movement over time can be a very, very powerful thing. And the combination of Precisely and Place IQ movement data and Ironside technology and data science to make that more custom for you is a very, very powerful thing. We're excited to be a part of it. Brian?
Yeah, so to bring it all together here, um, you know, Brian talked about the variety, the extreme, useful value of this location data, and how it can inform so many analyses. And that while there is a dashboard that Place IQ and Precisely provide, that certainly for your business, you're going to have specific questions, whether you're a QSR or whether you're a clothing retailer or whether you're, whatever your vertical is going to be specific to your business. And where the synergy is that, Precisely has these, just incredible location data about individuals and how they're moving around and interacting with your business and where they come from, who they are, et cetera. You want that information to be readily available to your decision makers in your business. And that's where the Ironside piece comes in, is that we can build custom designed dashboards to answer the questions that are specific to your industry and to your needs. We can integrate it with your infrastructure, with your operations, to make sure that the data that is specific to you is getting integrated with these other data and getting displayed and presented to the right people. Enriching the data with those Precisely data sets is really just going to be super valuable to your company. Other things that could be done in a dashboard, for example, are grouping by your franchisee. Like, do you want to drill down and see, hey, this person owns 12 stores in Illinois. Let me look at those and how they're doing versus the rest of the franchise. Drilling down into those, is a potential valuable thing. Similarly, enabling the franchisee to be able to look at their own performance relative to the rest of the franchise. So that franchisee enablement is also something that is a valuable capability, and that's something that Ironside can build out for you. Being able to compare store to store and look at, potentially look at competitors, right? That you always, there's no business in the world that doesn't want to know how their competitors are doing. And so being able to do that comparison, getting it on a dashboard so that, it's available on a daily basis to look, for the C-suite to look at, how are things doing, how are things performing? How are things doing relative to our competition? Where is our advertising being successful? All of those questions, can be built into a custom dashboard, and really that's where Ironside can help out, is building out that custom visibility of the business intelligence. So I think that we're basically at the end here. This is sort of call to action. We've got an email to contact Ironside about how we might build these out for you. That we have methodologies for building these that are time bound and modular in terms of building dashboards and building that BI information for you. We're happy to have those as managed services or hand them off so that you can run them yourself. But the main takeaway is, if any of this has been interesting to you, please contact us, either Ironside or Precisely. We are happy to engage in a discussion on what will be valuable to you, what will be valuable to your business, what is specific to your business, and we can work out how we can build a solution for you that works.